Welcome back to Knockout Arcade, a 2D retro pixel art fighting game. Since my last video, I've been hard at work in the kitchen cooking up some new content for the game. We've got some new moves and a bunch of new mechanics to go over, which I'm super excited to show off to you guys. I've also got a good amount of progress done laying out the groundwork for some unique single player content, including new enemies, obstacles, and level layouts. It's been a very busy and chaotic year for me so far, juggling work and game development, but I finally put in the time to create this update video for y'all, as I know a lot of you are really looking forward to seeing how this project turns out. I want to thank all of you for your continued interest in this game. It truly means the world to me. Without further ado, let's get into the new changes to Knockout Arcade. Over the past few months, I've been hard at work designing new single player content for the game. Fighting game single player tends to be fairly bare bones these days. There are a few standout games that offer a slight twist, such as Idol Showdown with its roguelike story mode, and Street Fighter VI's World Tour mode. And while these modes can be a lot of fun, I feel like they ultimately boil down to a series of fights against the computer. I wanted to do something different with my game to prove that fighting games can do better with their single player modes. My idea is to create a short campaign mode with platforming levels and minigames. I thought it would be cool to have the player jump around, attack enemies, and destroy obstacles in the environment, almost like a beat 'em up game. I want to avoid the grindy, repetitive nature of other fighting game single player modes, and I feel that the platforming levels are a great way to blend combat and exploration. To tie these levels together, I created a small hub world that the player can walk around on. The player can enter levels by walking over these circles on the ground and pressing the A button, akin to games like New Super Mario Bros. On top of that, I plan to include various NPCs on the world map that the player can talk to in order to find out more about the game's story or learn some tips and tricks that can help them inside levels. The last thing on the world map is the shop, where the player can spend quarters that they find in levels to purchase items and character upgrades. I only have this rough mock-up to show for now, as I haven't actually added items to the game yet, but it is something that I'm planning for. As far as actual levels go, my plan is to have 5 platforming levels, 3 minigame levels, and 3 fights against the rest of the cast, followed by a short gauntlet of enemies and then the final boss fight. Some of the levels are not required in order to beat the game, and a couple of them can also be done out of order. The 5 platforming levels feature an arcade stage, a restaurant stage, a haunted arcade cabinet, an indoor rope gym, and a laser tag arena. So far I have the arcade stage blocked out and playable in the game, with the restaurant stage about halfway done. The haunted cabinet stage is planned out, but I have not gotten it implemented into the game yet. All of these stages are using placeholder art for now, since the actual level layouts are not finalized yet. I still need to do a bunch of playtesting, and there's a ton of mechanics that I have to add. On the subject of mechanics, I had to do a lot of tweaking to how attacks work in order to make sure they function properly in a single player environment. Due to the nature of the platforming levels, I added the ability to turn special moves around in the air, similar to how you can reverse special moves in Smash Bros. This gives the player far more control over their jump arc, and it lets me design interesting platforming segments where the player needs to use their moveset in order to overcome an obstacle. I also spent time adding a few more objects that the player can destroy, including these arcade machines and this monitor that the player can grab with their up special. I also added health and meter pickups that the player can collect. I wanted to add room transitions to levels to give myself a larger design space, so I spent some time programming that as well, which you can see in this short test level. It's fairly basic at the moment, but I also want to add the ability to open doors to get to new areas in addition to running off the side of the screen. I imagine it working in a similar manner to River City Girls, where the player holds down the light attack button to go through a door. In addition to room transitions, I also programmed special camera zones that allow the camera to pan up and down. These zones are quite flexible, as they can be placed down in an area and allow me to define where the camera is allowed to look. I can even add secret areas that are hidden off camera until the player discovers them. There's still a lot of work to do in order to polish up camera movement, since it can be a little tricky to control sometimes. And finally, I spent time working on programming enemies for the player to fight within levels. I have 2 enemies working so far, although they both use Russell's alternative costumes to distinguish each other. The first enemy is named Jin. They're a fairly easy enemy that only walks around a bit and will occasionally try to punch the player. These enemies are meant to be very easy to allow the player to learn how their attacks work on the ground. Since they use Russell's attack data, their up-close attack is too fast to react to, and it doesn't give the player any warning that it's coming, but that'll be something I address once I actually make sprites for this enemy. The second enemy is named Hops. They like to jump around and perform aerial attacks. To deal with this enemy, the player needs to either hit them out of the air with an anti-air attack, or jump up and meet them with an air-to-air attack. Even though these enemies are so simple, there was a lot of logic and programming work that needed to be done. Since the enemies don't know what the terrain looks like, their AI needs to accommodate for any kind of terrain. The hops enemy in particular needed special logic in order to not just jump off of cliffs by itself. There's no kind of nav mesh or anything like that in Game Maker, so I had to do all of the enemy AI myself. Nevertheless, it was still an interesting learning experience, and I'm excited to add even more enemies into the game. Whew, that was a lot of groundwork to go through, but now that it's all been laid out, I should have a far easier time adding new content to the game. There's still a few more mechanics I'd like to add, such as items and local co-op, but those are going to be quite involved and are going to need a lot of time in order to implement them properly. I also need to try to design levels with a mix of both platforming and fighting game mechanics, which has proven to be a bit tricky for me. I don't want a situation where the game spread itself too thin, and I can't do either of those things well. It's also tricky since I need to devote time to both the single player and versus mode content, which is why progress on the game has been pretty slow. I'm only one person and I have a full-time job as well, but I'm still doing my best to make the game as fun as it can be, hopefully proving that fighting games can and should do better with their single player experience. With all of that out of the way, let's go over all of the new additions to the game's core system mechanics. First things first, I reworked how controllers are recognized by the game. You can now choose which side you want to play on in versus mode, including not playing on either side at all. This allows you to play against an empty CPU opponent if only one controller is connected. It also means that players who do not have a keyboard with a numpad can still mess around in versus mode. My goal with this system was allowing players to connect and disconnect controllers at will, without having to restart the entire game. This improves user experience and game flow, and also makes tournaments and demos easier to run since controllers can be switched out at will. Next, I added a 4-frame input buffer to the end of all attacks. If you input a move just as the current attack is ending, you'll get the new move on the first possible frame. This makes the game feel more responsive and makes tight links a lot easier. I also added throw protection and cross-up protection. Whenever you get up off the ground or recover from getting hit, there's a 7-frame window where you cannot be thrown. This is to prevent a situation called a throw loop, where a player can keep putting their opponent in a 50-50 guessing game whenever they land a throw. In order to throw the opponent, you must now condition them into blocking, which in my opinion requires more skill and strategy. As for cross-ups, there's now a 3-frame window whenever the opponent switches sides, where the defending player is allowed to block in either direction. This is to help tone down absurd left-right guesses, whilst not removing cross-ups entirely. This placeholder geyser effect indicates that a cross-up was protected against. Moving on to attack properties, there are now floor bounces and hard knockdowns on specific moves. A floor bounce causes the opponent to slam into the ground and bounce back into the air, allowing for a follow-up attack. Hard knockdowns force the opponent into a longer knockdown animation and prevent them from doing a quick get-up or a tech roll, allowing the offensive player to get bonus pressure. These knockdowns are rather sparse at the moment, as only a handful of moves actually grant them. All crouching heavy attacks as well as a couple of special moves give hard knockdowns. Lastly, you can now taunt by pressing the select button on your controller. Only Russell's is finished at the moment, but more taunts will obviously be added in the future. There's a ton of smaller tweaks and bug fixes I've made as well, but we don't have time to go over all of them. If you're ever curious as to what got added in an update, I upload patch notes every time a new build gets created. These can be found in the discussion area of the itch.io page. Of course, I also made a bunch of changes to all of the characters to help flesh them out, and to make them feel better. But there's one character in particular who got a lot of attention this time around. An absolute ton of progress has been made on Jay over the past few months, including brand new command normals and new special moves. My goal was to make Jay a more evasive and tricky character on Spirit Off, so he has a lot of new attacks to help surprise the opponent and hit them in ways they don't expect. Starting with command normals, forward plus light attack is a fast low that travels quite far. Since Jay's crouching light attack does not hit low, this new command normal gives him a way to quickly check the opponent's ankles and keep them on their toes. It can also be cancelled into and out of quite easily, allowing him to sneak it in for an extra low attack in block strings. To complement this game plan, forwards plus heavy summons Smooth Criminal to perform a long-range overhead attack. This move can be done in both Spirit On and Spirit Off, and it's a powerful yet slow method of opening up the opponent. You cannot cancel this move, but you can rush cancel if you want to convert off of the overhead. Its use in combos is limited in Spirit Off, but can become quite strong in Spirit On, as launchers become more readily available in Jay's kit. Additionally, because it makes use of Smooth Criminal, Jay cannot perform this move if he is Spirit Broken. His last command normal is back plus medium in the air. This move hits directly behind Jay, making it an excellent cross-up button. Because it's a command normal, he can also cancel his other air attacks into it, giving him more unique combo routes off of a jump in. As a bonus, it also causes a wall bounce, though it can be quite tricky to pull off. It also synergizes with his brand new special moves. Jay now has 2 new special moves in Spirit Off. His new side special is Sweet Escape, a teleport that appears above the opponent. By pressing left or right, Jay can control which side he appears on, allowing him to surprise the opponent with a cross-up or stay on the same side and get a jump in. This move gives Jay some excellent mobility and allows him to navigate around the opponent's pokes and projectiles. He is susceptible to getting anti-aired, although the opponent needs to predict which way he'll show up. Just like his forward heavy command normal, Jay cannot perform this move at all if he is spirit broken. His new down special is Pump It. Jay summons Smooth Criminal to perform an uppercut from the ground, launching the opponent into the air. This move is quite unique, as it always appears on the ground, regardless of how high up Jay is. This allows him to pressure opponents from the sky in a very unique way. Additionally, by pressing down forward or down back, Jay can control how close or far Smooth Criminal appears from him, allowing him to surprise opponents from a distance or catch them out of a jump. There is a hurt box on this move just before it hits, however, so if the opponent is smart, they can check this move with a quick low and punish Jay for spamming it. All of these new attacks help define Jay as a tricky mix-up character with good movement and space control. Since Jay does not have a good poke that hits the opponent while they're crouching, he needs to rely on his other tools in order to fight the opponent. Then, once he does get in, he can activate Smooth Criminal for some crazy close-range offense. I haven't gotten around to adding the enhancers for his new special moves yet, but those will be coming in the future. I hope you all enjoy all the new attacks Jay has to play with. And that does it for this round of updates to Knockout Arcade. I bounced around between a bunch of different things, and I laid out the groundwork for more single-player content going forward. I'm really eager to experiment with this platformer fighting hybrid, and hopefully I can find a way to provide both a satisfying platforming and brawling experience. I'm also really liking how Jay's shaping up. I think his playstyle is going to end up being really interesting once the Spirit On moveset is finished, which I plan to work on next. After that, I want to flesh out Gunther's moveset more, as his main cleaning mechanic still needs to be programmed. From there, I plan to work on the 5th and 6th characters towards the end of the year, hopefully having the full 6-character roster playable to some degree by December. It'll take a lot of work, especially since I'm still working a full-time job. I've actually gone through 3 different jobs since my last devlog, but I've thankfully settled on one that I enjoy doing so that I can have energy to work on the game for a few hours in the evenings. Before I go, I also want to mention that I'm commissioning the composer for more music tracks for the game. We've already gotten the character select theme finished, which you're actually listening to right now. The plan is to have 1 music track per character, with a couple of extra tracks such as the main menu theme, hub world theme, etc. I'm really excited for all the amazing music my composer is making, so huge thanks to them. A link to their Bandcamp is also in the description if you want to check them out. And one last thing, I know it's taking me ages to make videos, I apologize for that. I honestly can't promise I'll be able to output them any faster than I currently am, as it takes time away from actually developing the game. I am putting out updates once every couple months though, so be sure to check the itch.io page or my community tab often. I actually posted one a couple weeks ago in preparation for EVO. Who knows, maybe one year I'll actually get my own booth. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you all again soon with another Knockout Arcade devlog.